Dr. Stone, episode 15, recap, go. Senku beats up Ginro to become the village chief, then he divorces Ruri, then Ruri gets really sick, then Senku finally makes the sulfa drug that he's been working on since he got to the village. Oh, and then Ruri gets better. What did you like? There's I say this every episode. There's a lot to like in this. At the beginning, we get the whole Ginro not understanding what women are saying because he's, a 14 or 15-year-old boy. And so he goes on a little bit of a rampage, and Senku puts him down with a nut shot, which is always fun. But I really like that the way he does it is he uses a lever, and the still shot of Senku stepping on his staff using the watermelon helmet as the fulcrum is just a fantastic way to explain how levers and their power distribution works. And I think that it's kind of a callback to when he saved Kohaku with the pulley system, because technically it was a machine since it was a system of simple machines, but I just like the simple machines that Senku just breaks them out without really needing to worry about it. Just basic physics. He knows how to make it work. I also thought it was really funny how, like, in these shows there's always like, oh, the person who's sick coughs up blood for the plot to happen and to show exposition to the people. I love how she, like, clearly can't even hide it from the other characters in the show. She's coughing up blood. She's just like, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. It's like, come on. We can get past that. But no, then once Senku leaves to go work on the drug to save her, I like how Ruri also has this line about she is the first divorced priestess of the village. And I like that she can stop and appreciate that she is the first, like, she is unique in this way that most people might not see as good. But I think that this is a strong character moment because it shows that she contemplates and considers things around her and how they interact not only with the present but with the past, and how it might influence things in the future, assumedly on that last one. And that is something that we rarely get from this show outside of Senku, because Senku considers a lot of possibilities, and it's normally a big plot point when he doesn't consider the smallest aspect of something. And so I like that we get to disperse some of the character traits. Like, Senku isn't the only person who pays attention to his surroundings. And I think that's good. That it's just a really great character moment that occurs in one little line of self-reflection. I think it's neat. And then the old man gets a couple of really good jokes in. So first off, he made the water carbonating machine thing, and he has the joke about how the ladies can fall in love with him, or they can feel free to fall in love with him if they want. And then Senku says, hey, good job on building that. I normally mess up my first few attempts whenever I build anything. And he points at Senku and he says, don't worry, Senku, you don't have to fall in love with me. And I kind of like this. It shows that obviously Genro isn't the only one with quote-unquote scumbag lines. And there's a lot of shows that don't have this, and it really accentuates the pervy character when they're around, because obviously if no one else around... A perfect example of this is My Hero Academia. When everyone around Grapehead Boy is, like, for lack of a better word, classy, but, like, not trying to fuck everything in a skirt, it really makes the one guy who's only ever talking about women and my only defining character trait is that I want to get laid. It really makes those characters seem so much worse when you don't have a throwaway line about one of your characters kind of being horny on main for one line. Like, And it's tasteful and respectful. Like, obviously, it's the old man. He doesn't think that Kohaku is really going to fall in love with him. And I don't really get any pedo vibes from him. So I don't think he really wants Suika to fall in love with him. Like, he doesn't want that to. And I don't think he thinks that Kohaku will. So it's a tasteful line where you get a little bit of that scumbag out of Ginro and into the rest of the world. And that is good. It's really good. It makes Ginro not an absolutely hateable character, which he's kind of a hateable character. You can not like Ginro. That's perfectly acceptable. But it makes him a lot more tolerable, I think. Oh, and then his interaction with Gin is absolutely hilarious. So, like, I don't know. The whole, like, Gin trying to get away from the old man and, like, I don't want to spend all night with you, old guy, and then he accidentally rips the cloak off and sees the big, crazy buff muscles, and he's like, yes, I will help you do whatever you want me to, man. Please do not punch me in my fragile face. And, but I like how, like, we've heard that the old man is scared to be out in the woods, and so obviously he doesn't want to be out there by himself. Like, yeah, he might be able to Tsukasa punch a lion to death, but he doesn't have that image of himself in his mind, and so even with this weaker bat-like man, he feels more safe and confident. And, I mean, you should always have a buddy if you're in the woods. It's quite rude of Gin to leave the old man just kind of sleeping on the side of the river. That's honestly really shitty. But he was excited to get some cola. Who wouldn't leave an old man to get eaten by wild beasts over a bottle of soda? Okay, so the only thing that I didn't like in this whole episode is why is Gin afraid of muscles? Like, he can lie to Tsukasa, and if Tsukasa finds out that he's lying to him, Gin will die. And he's surrounded by a bunch of muscly dudes that could use him as a toothpick. And for whatever reason, this nice old man, he just finds out, happens to be a little, by a little I mean a lot, extra muscular, and that, like, terrifies him. Which is just something that I don't think we've really seen from Gin. Like, he keeps a calm head whenever he's around the meatheads. Like, even with Magma, he was smart enough to play dead and do his whole ruse and all of that. Like, as he was actively being assassinated by a big ol' strong muscly man, he kept his cool and was calm enough to figure his way out of that situation. And I guess you could just say that the surprise caught him off guard and whatever, but I don't know. I think he's... I guess I'd rather have the joke than a stronger character in this particular instance, but it does make the fact that he could stand up to Tsukasa and Magma and keep his cool a little less believable if he's just going to be freaked out by an old man with Goku muscles. And then, okay, back to what we liked. So Senku wakes up Chrome to help him make the sulfa drug, because he wants help, obviously. And I like how they act like they're going to go into, like, the step-by-step process of how to make the drug in your backyard. And Senku goes through all of step 1, and Chrome's like, whoa, that was really crazy complicated. There were a bunch of different things we need and a couple of different processes all in this one step. How many of those steps are we going to do tonight? And Senku's like, oh, I don't know, 25 of them? And I think that's a perfect shorthand for the writers to be like, hey, obviously, we're not gonna go all the way in depth of how to make medicine in your own backyard for not only legal reasons, but probably time reasons, and we don't really want to animate all of that. And I like how Senku more or less has a line that, if you can read the subtext, says, We obviously aren't going step by step, so get your ass ready for a montage. And I think that that is a good thing to prepare the audience for. Then, of course, it's cute that Ansarigan is selfish and he sees carbonated water, and this can only mean one thing, and it has to be my cola. And Senku turns around and makes him the butt of his own joke and says, "Nope, time for some baking soda." But then, fortunately for Gin, Mecha Senku was lurking around in the background, and he did not forget his promise, and Mecha Senku taught us all how to make cola. And honestly, isn't that the most important thing you can take away from this show? Alright, back to the plot. Senku cures. It doesn't seem like Senku is helping Ruri at first. She goes into shock, and all of the elders tell us that it happened as soon as she took that sorceress medicine. Rar! And so. And so, when they come to see why things are getting worse, the chief, like, has Senku, like, one hand is wrapped around Senku's whole neck. And it's like, oh, that's a big man. We can see why he won the grand bout in his own time. But, yeah, we get some really intense villain face all throughout that scene. And we get the most intense villain face as Senku declares victory over his disease. Over the disease. And then it basically smash cuts to everybody outside in the sunflower fields that everyone knows is Ruri's favorite place to be. And the chief breaks down crying because both of his girls are happy and healthy and doing things that they want to be doing and being successful at those things. And it is it's such good. This whole episode is just good for character development. We haven't seen a whole lot from the chief other than he's an asshole. He's uptight about everything. He seems like a control freak, I guess. And when things are getting the most out of hand is when he gets the angriest. And once Senku fixes things and he basically, like, pats the chieftain on the shoulder and says, "Hey, don't worry, man, I'm here, I got this, we can do this together, I don't want to hurt your people, and I've actively been spending my time trying to save your daughter, here's some of the reins back on your life, like, here's the normalcy, here's what you've wanted." And he breaks down crying and is really thankful to Senku and is thankful that his daughters are fine. And you get to see that that is just him being a hyper-defensive father over his two girls, and all he wants is for them to be happy and healthy. And that's where all of his control freakishness has come from in the past, is because there has been literally no control that he could take over his daughter dying. And that's the two things that are important to him are Kohaku and Ruri. Those are obviously he cares about the village. He's got responsibility to the village, but his passions are his daughters. And it's so satisfying to see that, yeah, like, we've been cheering for Chrome, we've been cheering for Kohaku, and we've been cheering for Senku to get invited into the village. But I think it's cool how one of the most impactful scenes on any of the characters in this episode is the chieftain scene where he breaks down crying in the sunflower field. And we also have more or less been actively rooting against the chieftain. Like, we don't want him to be sad or miserable or anything, but he's been openly kind of the antagonist other than Magma. And it's good writing. It shows that, yeah, sometimes people... It's the road to hell is paved with I fucked that up. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that's going to be my big takeaway for this episode. Because that's all that is. That's the chieftain's whole character from when we meet him until now. Is he's a douchebag, control freak, what's the Hitler one? Authoritarian. He's very just... He's just not on your side. And then watching him relax and be able to not be puppeted by this fear and this anxiety anymore is such a huge victory for a character that we've been told more or less not to like so far. And that's good writing. I say it every single episode. This show is really good if you want to cut your writing chops against something else. Like, every line more or less has a purpose. All of the artwork is either entertaining and impressive, or it's furthering the plot, and it's also still impressive. I mean, like, yeah. I guess that's all that this is going to be if I don't get onto the spoiler part. It's just going to be me gushing for the rest of this. So, there is one spoiler, so spoilers! We find out that Senku's last name is the name of the village. Dun dun dun! Yeah, it's actually really cool. So, spoilers, like I've said. We find out that Senku has an adopted father who was up on the ISS when the whole Flash thing happened and everyone got turned to stone. And so we find out that this village is the descendants of all of the people who are on the International Space Station when everyone got turned to stone. And in some later episodes, we get to meet all of those people. We get to see how they return to Earth. And yes, it's all of that is pretty easily taken away from this, but one of the more interesting plot things that we find that you can infer from this information. So if you're really good at putting clues together and you're making inferences off of inferences, then you also come to realize that whatever happened likely wasn't a cosmic coincidence. It wasn't some like crazy solar wind type thing coming from another universe or something like that. Because if it was, then it would have washed over the International Space Station and stoned everyone inside of there too. So whatever happened to the Earth was localized to the Earth, like the surface of the planet. It was likely something that happened within the ozone layer. That's my big guess as of right now, because Season 2 is over, and we still don't know what that green flash was, because soon we're about to get back into Tsukasa stuff, which is fun. I like Tsukasa. But yeah, that's the big spoilers, and I'm really excited to get into the past, because I like most of the values and the struggles that the original settlement goes through. But yeah, episode 15. That's a wrap. Big takeaway again. It really does just line the chieftain is road to hell's paved with good intentions. You can end up actively harming things just by doing your best, and that's also not something that you should hold against people when it happens. If people are trying to do good, they're trying their very best to do good, and they end up just absolutely flatlining the process of doing good and everything fails, they're still worthy of respect and praise, and maybe just need education or another try at something or help with something. Um, I guess, I don't know. I guess that's more of a way to act around it. But we, just as how the audience is expected to forgive the chieftain for what he's been doing, you should be expected to be forgiving of people who accidentally hurt people. Now, if it's not an accident, this is not, if someone's trying to be a dickhead, if someone's like actively doing bad, and then they're, oh no, I'm this, whatever, the thing that was making my life bad is gone now, and that was the only thing. Like, no, like the chieftain was trying to keep his daughters alive. He has had bad experiences with exiles before. He's had bad experiences with sorcerers before, because they explicitly state that in this episode, as people have claimed to be sorcerers before, and bad medicine did something to someone, presumably Kohaku and Rory's mother, but we haven't heard about that quite yet. So he's just paranoid, and that paranoia is weird because you are actively still trying to help out and do your best. But like, yeah, it's a fine line to draw between if someone's just ill informed or ill advised or actively doing harm. But like, obviously with the chieftain, it's pretty easy to see that it's just stress and pressure. So alright, I've been talking about the big takeaway that I came up with 6 minutes ago. So